Evloyite. Um,
We're
so
curious.
if some of these texts are approved, how does that affect the like layperson in the at the church level? And if at a local level we don't agree with what has been discussed and agreed upon, quote unquote, do is it our duty to do obedience and listen and do what they have agreed upon, or can we? I don't know. Is there another a response that's allowable?
Well, if this council or any council teaches something that's not in agreement with the tradition of the church and the dogma of the church, if, for instance, if this council comes out with a teaching that the Church of Christ is not just the Orthodox Church, but it's also the Roman Catholic, or that Roman Catholics and Protestants participate in the Church of Christ and they have the mysteries of the church, these kind of teachings are unorthodox. They're not patristic ecclesiology. They're not the teaching of the church. And if this council taught such things, then you would not only have the ability and the right to reject it, it would be incumbent upon you as an Orthodox Christian to reject the council. And that's exactly the stance that's being taken by those who are trying to follow the Holy Fathers. They understand that a council in and of itself does not guarantee orthodoxy. There have been false councils, many. And we can just name a few. The most well-known would be the Robber Council of 14, which is in Ephesus, and that was the counter-council to the Council of Chalcedon, and they anathematized the Orthodox there. So there are plenty of examples. Council of Lyon, the Council of Florence, they were false councils. They were councils of bishops who went and represented the church and did not teach orthodoxy. In that case, we all need to reject the council, follow the Orthodox bishops, whoever they are, wherever they are, and struggle against the acceptance of the council's decisions. If the council does not have any dogmatic decisions, if they have decisions that are of a disciplinary matter, that are still unorthodox, we can struggle against it without it being considered a heretical teaching. And then that's going to be a different kind of struggle and a different kind of resistance. It's going to be through the bishops and not, hopefully there will be no split, and it's more nuanced. But if it's a clear dogmatic diversion and there's a number of churches or bishops that are actively supporting this dogmatic diversion, then yes, things become very dire and we need to resist and follow the Orthodox bishops and clergy that are teaching aright the faith.
Father, can you give an example of the second part, like where it's quote unquote not really dogmatic, but there's nuance and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, if the church comes out, if this council comes out and teaches that marriages with non-Orthodox are not just by extreme economy, but essentially they make it almost a krivia, which is where they're going and why the Church of Georgia objects to the reference in one of the documents. That would be a diversion from an ecumenical council. It would be an innovation. It would be not clearly a dogmatic diversion. It's not an article of faith. We don't believe in. It's not the same as believing in Christ or believing in the Holy Trinity or believing in the Church, but it would be definitely an innovation and a diversion from the tradition and the decisions of the ecumenical councils. And the local churches, people, faithful bishops, clergy should resist that and work against that and not follow that teaching. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have the same kind of consequences you'd have for a major dogmatic diversion. So I think each circumstance and each innovation and each diversion really needs discernment on the part of the priest, the bishop, the faithful. We don't need reactions and schisms. Those who divert from the faith and who teach otherwise are the ones who should be removed from the church or can depart from the church. We who are trying to struggle to keep the teachings of the fathers are not going to go anywhere. So we need to be patient, discerning, but strong and mindful when we are encountering these kind of innovations and diversions from the church.
Father Peter, just because it cut out at the very beginning, could you just give the example again?
The example was that it's very possible might happen is that the documents on the mission of the Orthodox Church in the modern world, there's a reference, if I'm not mistaken, there's a reference to the being blessed to have intermarriages. In other words, Orthodox, can you hear me?
Yes. So Orthodox
marry non-Orthodox. Now that is, there's an ecumenical council and a canon of the ecumenical council which forbids this. This is not blessed. This happens all the time, but it's supposedly by extreme economy and not because there's any normality to it. In other words, it's an extreme pastoral economy for particular instances. But if you're going to pass something like this and have an ecumenical or a pan-orthodox council approve it, it takes on the status of a krivia. In other words, it's like a normal occurrence and not an extreme economy. And actually, there's a real danger that they're going to, the reasoning behind this is, well, because they are baptized Christians. In other words, why can an Orthodox Christian marry a Protestant or Catholic and not a Muslim? Well, because they're baptized Christians. Well, that exactly is the baptismal theology, cacodoxy of ecumenism, which views the various heterodox confessions as having mysteries. So you immediately see that it's dogmatic diversion because of the reasoning, and it becomes very complicated. And so that's an example that could very, very well happen, because most of the opposition right now is against the other text, which is the relations of the Orthodox Church with the rest of the Christian world, which has many, many problems. The mission of the Orthodox Church in the modern world has this particular reference, and there isn't nearly as much opposition to that. So you could see that as a potential problem emerging from the council. Of course, as I said before, it's not a pan-orthodox council for 3 or 4 different reasons that I cited. So the decisions should not be considered binding, and therefore I don't expect we're going to have the same kind of problem we have if it was a decision that should, of all the Orthodox churches.